Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to our Wednesday live with Renu Sahor. And with me, we have Carla with us, who is always graciously helping us to run the session. And today's guest with us is Dr. Habibah Ellahee. So, a very warm welcome, Dr. Habibah. How are you today?
Not bad, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for accepting our invite. So, how are you, Carla? Can't hear you. Sorry.
I said I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good. So, to start with today's live, we would request Dr. Habibah to tell us about herself. She is a director of Future Learning Lab, and as I was finding out a little bit more, and I found out that she is a dental surgeon, a lecturer, and got connected to education. So we are so curious to find out more about you, Dr. Habibah. So please share with us.
Okay, so yep, I'm a dental surgeon by profession.
Mhm.
Graduated 20 odd years ago now. And I wasn't keen on dentistry, I admit, wanted to quit in my third year. So I got persuaded to continue and finish it because it looks good on your CV if you complete something, as they say. And what I intended to do was to go off and work in the city. However, one thing led to another, ended up staying in dentistry. But to make my job interesting, I decided to teach at university. So I taught dental undergraduates, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. It fascinated me the way that the whole educational aspect, the whole side, the mentality of teachers, students, etc., etc. Anyhow, stayed in dentistry, teaching part time, but also working financial commitments as we all have. And back in 2014, I had young kids and a husband who wanted to travel the world, so we moved to the Middle East. I was quite happy actually to put my tools down for a while I concentrated on my kids. And they entered the world of education and international education. So I was exposed to the international education uh, curriculum, etc. And I don't know, just I wasn't too pleased really. I wasn't keen on the way that things were done. And obviously, with my years before, I was familiar with education and how I felt what was the best ways of doing things. And I decided to embark on well on on education and how one can improve in order to maximize the potential of all learners, because I noticed that we seemed to be stuck, and I say we as in the whole international community seems to be stuck on an archaic form of learning that was introduced about 100 years ago. And as I'm sure you know, through the generations, the world has changed, we've modernized, we're going through a fourth industrial revolution, and the way that things were done is not the way that things that they work now. So I also, having moved from the west to the east, realized that there was a massive hang up of the east on who they were, and they wanted to be like people in the west, and they lost their identity. They were losing their identity, their language, their culture, and they wanted to be something that they weren't. And I was just like, no, you are who you are. Own it, embrace it, because that's the best person that you're going to be. So I didn't want my kids to have that hang up. Coming from, obviously, from the east, with my parents moved to the west, I was born and brought up in the west. I had obviously identity issues, and overcame them, got settled with myself, etc., etc. And I didn't want the sort of reverse to happen with my kids. And also I noticed that inhibited their learning journey and their educational journey, and I wanted them to maximize on the best of both worlds.
Okay, that's really amazing. Can you hear some echo with my voice? Is it?
There was, but it seems okay now.
Okay. So, yeah. So, that's the, I can so much resonate with what you were talking about, that how we are losing our identity if we shift to one place to another. And we are global citizens, and we need to, for work, for other issues, and for other things, what's going on in this world, we need to sometimes take those decisions to move. And because of not being able to connect with that global education, which should be what it should be, it makes a lot of difference. So, what how you come across with this future learning lab, how you have decided that this is something which can bring in some sort of like change, or it's a beautiful idea when I've heard about it, and I really would like to know more about it.
Well, what happened was that Future Learning Lab came about with like-minded people, so people who were on the same wavelength as myself, more so in terms of modernizing the way that people learn. I had, as I said, when I came to the Middle East, the education system was very different. And what people did was they would ask me, as someone who was from England with an English accent and a British education, teach my children English, as I wasn't doing anything. And I was like, but I'm not a teacher per se, and I don't teach children. But they were insistent on it because of what I supposedly look like and deemed. And I decided to formalize my educational expertise or experience, so to speak, by doing a PGCE. And then I went into doing a master's in management and leadership because I felt that generally the way that the system was in this part of the world, even everywhere, to be honest, is like I mentioned before, is stuck in a time warp, and we need to embrace the ways of learning that have actually existed in research and have been practiced in very few areas of the world for centuries now. It's not a new concept what the FLL are sort of promoting. It's something that's always been there and existed, but for whatever reason, politics, money, whatever you want to call it, it hasn't been embraced. But I think enough is enough now. And so I came across some like-minded people who appreciated where I was coming from. And that's how the FLL came into fruition. So Sarah Shaw, who's the founder of the FLL, had come across an American homeschooling system that had come together called Workspace. And what they had done is they had sort of embraced a certain a co-creation community feel, like learning a community that maximized the child's learning potential. And what they'd done is they'd formalized it by creating a space for these parents and future families to go to in order to conduct their child's education. And it was the fact that they were a community, that they'd worked together, and that maximized that child's potential, and also made that child feel worthy and part of a community that they felt that they felt benefited, that they felt, yeah, benefited them. And with school, I'm sure many of us know that there are lots of issues with school. If you don't fit in, you're ostracized. If you don't fit into the boundaries that or this educational intellectual what's the word, scale, if you're outside those boundaries, again, you're ostracized, you're typecast, and you have many peer pressure groups. I think with social media as well, there's a lot of pressure on children or kids, learners, to conform and things like that. So difference or a different way of doing things isn't celebrated. It's actually looked down upon, and that's where we come into mental health issues, not only for those people, but just the fact that people have to conform to certain ways. And I could go on and on and on, but I'll stop there. So it was a group of like-minded people that came together. It just through, I don't know if you've heard of Project U. They're in Dubai. They are an Expo 2021 initiative where they bring social soft skills, closing the gap between school and work. And it was through their initiative and their events that, like I said, myself, Sarah, and a couple of other co-founders came together and decided to move on with this idea.
Okay. Yeah, it's good to know about how you came together and how this concept came into being. So, what you were talking just now, that why society doesn't accept the children who are different, not different in some other way, but they want to do things differently, the same thing which can be done in so many ways. So why can't society accept that this is okay if somebody doesn't wants to do maths or English in this way? They may be able to learn and do it in that way. What do you think about it, Carla, since you have got the experience of some children, special education? So how do you connect with all this?
Well, my job exists because of what Dr. Habib is actually saying. I think if schools didn't fail, there'd be no such people as special education teachers. And for a long time, I was frustrated by the system of, it's because they set boxes. They have boxes, and human beings love to create boxes. And the boxes sound great and they look lovely on paper, but when you try and get human beings to fit inside the boxes, which are all made unique, it just doesn't work. And I think that what Dr. Habib is doing is actually the future. It's the future of education in the sense that there will not be a uniformed way for people to be schooled. It's hard to imagine it now, but it is going to happen, and it's going to happen probably at a more rapid rate than we actually think. And I believe in 2020, we saw a massive transformation in education. We'd been talking for a long time about personalizing schooling and having a bit more flexibility and seeing an increase in online learning. And the doors were being closed on any forward-thinking educator, including myself and lots of colleagues who work in special education, who deal with the reality of trying to get kids to fit in boxes. The doors have been closed in our faces for about 10 years. Oh, this whole personalized and la la la, it's a load of nonsense. No, we need kids to meet the standards. But lo and behold, 2020 came and there was a pandemic, and then all of a sudden, everybody suddenly had no choice but to shift online. And now that's completely changed what we know of schooling, hasn't it? So I think that we'll see more organizations like this coming up all over the place to meet the needs of lots of different learners, but not just the learners, their families as well, because children are not just people in their own right. You know, they don't just pop up in the middle of school. They come from families. They come from parents who have got dreams for those children, visions, value systems, culture and all of that, and things that are bolstering that child up as well. And I think for a long time, there's been the assumption that regardless of the background you come from, regardless of what your parents want for you or how they're trying to bring you up, that you can just be brought into this place called school and you can be shaped according to the way that society wants. And I think that that's one of the most exciting things about the future of education that I can see from Dr. Habibah and her team's project and all the other projects. It's the getting rid of that idea that it's someone else's responsibility to educate your child, and therefore they can tell your child anything they want and make them be anything they want because they're being shaped for society. You know, I think that that's one of the most exciting things about education, is that is giving the power back to the parents, and less people will feel what she felt. And also I related to what she said about when you put your children in the international education system. I don't know if hers was a similar mindset to mine, but coming from Britain, where we have that industrialized, we're responsible for that industrialized system of education. Sorry, world, but we are. That you have this notion that private schooling or paid schooling is superior in quality, and that your children are going to get a better experience, and that you as a parent is going to have more say in that because you're paying your money. But that's really not true. And I think that is also something that can cause you to really have a look as a parent at things like your value system, what you really want your children to be taught, how you want them to be taught, and it can give you back that power. You know, when other organizations are founded by parents and by educators, by people who have been in industry, and they all bring their ideas together, you get much better education provision. And I think the future will be a wider variety. So again, like Dr. Habibah, this is my area, so I could go on, but I'll give it back to you for another question.
Yeah, as it is said that education is the passport to future. I mean, that is one place where all of us can bring in all what we have gone through and try to make and deliver deliverables which can bring in some change and which can be for better of the future. Yeah. So Dr. Habiba, how do you connect, is like future learning lab, was it for only students, or was it for parents, doing some workshops for parents or tutors, teachers? So, and what exactly for students, like when you were doing, what sort of workshops related to classroom or life skills? So we would love to know a little bit more on that.
Okay, so essentially, we believe that learning is lifelong. It doesn't end. And I think that parents need to be very aware of that, that when they send their kids to school, that they're continuously learning with their children as well, and that they can contribute to that learning experience, and that contributes to their own learning experience as well. And so we provide, essentially, we initially provided courses for young learners between 8 and 18, simply because that's what we were capable of in the beginning. That we realized that lots of adults wanted similar courses. And what I mean by similar courses is the fact that what we want to do is, we appreciate that not everybody can just change just like this. And people are very comfortable in their comfort zone. The world is still plodding along with A levels, SATs, whatever you want to get, and doing that traditional academic journey. So what we're saying is, okay, fine. If you don't want to do away with that, what we can do is we can do a personalized learning program for your child, where they will develop and master the essential skills of life alongside the existing academic journey that they're on. So, for example, learning emotional intelligence and all the other soft skills that come, research has shown that these skills can be made, they can be mastered alongside doing maths, English, science, the traditional courses. And what we do is that, and they can also enhance your success in these subjects as well. So it's very much research based, very much experience based as well. And what we want to do is we want it to be learner led, as we call it, because the learner can be any age. You can embark on an educational journey at not necessarily like at the traditional age, but later on. And as we know, when we get into the workforce, it doesn't end. It doesn't finish. And what's happening now is that the work place is realizing that the people that they're trying to hire don't have the skills that are necessary in the workplace. For example, the soft skills, emotional intelligence, empathy, all of these things, and that's what's missing. So yeah, I mean, it's a given that everyone's going to get a GCSE, SAT, IB, A level, but what and sort of that's taken for granted now. What they want is, they want people who have that edge. And it's sad to say, but these are life skills that we all need in order to be able to move on with our personal relationships, our work relationships, any relationship essentially. But kids are clueless when they leave school as to the life skills that are required for whatever reason. And what we're saying is that we want to incorporate that into your existing learning, so that you're not having to start from the beginning when you start your work. And you're not being, it's not alien, you're not an alien in the world that you live in, and that you've actually mastered these skills, and that you can actually thrive and be the best that you can in the workplace, or the culture and environment that you're in.
Okay. uh, it's like such a beautiful thing what you've said in between, that it is something which has to go with the curriculum. It can't be like once you finish the curriculum, or once you finish all your A levels and GCC and everything, and then you should go for life skills. So it has to go along, and if something can just integrate all these things as you are learning for your grades and everything, you can do life skills and be a global citizen or a global person, because that's what we
Yeah,
require in today's scenario.
yeah.
So if suppose you want to tell something to the parents who are looking, as I interact with lots of parents many a times, that they want to do something for the children, but they don't know how to go about it, which place is the best for their child. And wherever they go, they find the places where they are saying, okay, you will get, the grades will get better, or you will be able to get admission in this university or that university. So everybody starts looking for that rather than trying to build up and equip children with the skills which may be helping them for emotional, mental, and all other overall sort of experience. So what would you like to, like, if suppose parents are looking for that, do you have some advice for them?
I think one of the philosophies of the FLL is that, and our icon as well, is three circles connected to each other, and each circle represents, one is the parent, one is the learner, and one is the facilitator, the guide, or the mentor, whatever you want to call it. And learning is a three-way street. Like Carla mentioned, the child isn't a single entity. The parents have a lot of influence, and to a certain degree dictate what they want for their child, and it's a journey that they need to do together. You can't just dump the child and expect the teacher or the mentor or the facilitator to do everything and the child to imbibe that, because that's essentially what school is doing. And what we're doing is just producing robots who can't do not compute as soon as something outside the box is presented to them. So one thing that we advise the parents is that they are vital in this journey of their child's learning. And they themselves, I think, to a certain degree, especially the new parents now, they lack those skills that their kids are also lacking and that they want for their children. And it's a journey that they could potentially do together. Now, research, again, I'll bring in the research, but it shows that children who have parents involved in their education journey prosper much more and are more successful in their life, mentally, emotionally, professionally, than those children that are left to their own devices. And I think it's not only it is that family connection, that community connection, where a child is celebrated as opposed to ostracized, that gains that stability is what then will then allow them to allow their child to gain the academic merit that they wish for their child. So I think that's one thing at the FLL that we try and advise the parents that, yeah, we can advise you, but you are very much a part of this journey. And in combination, what we do is we also provide that personalized learning pathway for that adult as well, for that parent, if need be. So it's something that the child and the parent can do together, or it could be something that the parent does to support the child. We try and make it very much a community thing, that community feel, so that the child feels accepted and celebrated. But we don't make it unrealistic, because obviously, as you know, not everything in life, everything that we do is celebration and whatever. We keep it real. I'd like to think.
Yeah, that we need to keep everything real, otherwise it just goes out of boundaries. So
Yeah.
yeah, I completely resonated when, like, parents are looking for time, how to spend time with their children, and if they get an opportunity to do it together and build that relationship which they are craving for, that can be a good thing for them if they're looking for something. Carla, what do you think about it? Parents getting involved in some sort of uh, coming together when their children are doing something and they be a part of it and learn and maybe try to reinforce at home. It'll make a huge difference. What do you think about it?
Absolutely. When Dr. Habibah was talking, I was thinking about the students that I worked with who were around 11, 12 years old and couldn't read. And one of my most interesting experiences was when I said to a mother that her boy couldn't read, and she told me he can. And that was a very sad moment, because I realized that somewhere along the line for 11 years, someone had been misleading this mother. And he'd been to school since he was 4 years old, and teachers were implicated in that. And that was shocking, because the situation for that boy was very serious at that stage. But the mother had no idea about how serious it was. And she had given the responsibility of this child's education to someone else, hoping that those other people were going to do the job. But also, not only that, she wasn't equipped to fix the situation. So now she was wanting someone else to fix it. And that's not one case that I've dealt with like that. There are hundreds of those. And it's not always just academic. Like Dr. Habibah said, there are other things as well. Behavior. I dealt with a lot of children with problematic behavior. And again, the parents were clueless as to how to deal with that. And they were saying to teachers, whose job is not to address behavior really, can you fix my child? You know? So if you get in these situations or opportunities, again, for parents to learn with their children, part of that is not just learning the activities or the skills related to the activity, but it's also learning the skills of parenting, such as having a conversation or working together towards a common goal, which is very important for parents and children. Quite often you see these clashes in the teens because children and parents both don't understand that you're supposed to be working towards a common goal, and the foundation hasn't been set for that from a young age. And actually that begins with play in the early years, 5, 6, 7, and definitely in the 8 to 13 range that I know Future Learning Lab looks at. That's the age when you lose them, you know, because now other people are getting in their head. They've got other influences, peer pressure, you know, social media. If you're not engaging with your child, or you don't know how, because that's the reality, lots of parents don't know how, then it's easy to lose them. So I think, again, projects like this give parents that opportunity to maintain, you know, their responsibility and their role, and to do it in ways that are enjoyable for both, and both are learning at the same time.
Thank you, Carla. And I resonated so much with when you said that parents want that their children to be fixed. Like, how can you fix that? Whatever they have lost during those years when they were not able to relate. So to avoid that situation, if we work from the beginning, we can have a much better scenario for the child and for everybody. So, Dr. Habibah, the next question comes in my mind is, how do you connect with race? What do you think about race?
Um, I think race was is when I came across it, it was amazing. It was so lovely to see um, the third wheel on our icon, so to speak, which was the facilitator, the guide, the coaching aspect of what we promoted, coming together in the form of race. What race are promoting, the coaching for education is exactly for all walks of life, for the learners, for the teachers, for the parents, for families. Promoting that is exactly what FLL is advocating. That is exactly what is required in order for us to make the most of life, and for us to thrive as individuals in society. And learning is not about being dictated to. It's about guidance, facilitation, coaching, and race complements that.
Thank you, and that's so lovely to hear when you try to bring something together, and when people understand the whole concept of bringing everybody together under one platform. It is such a good feeling. So, is there some last advice you would like to give to parents or whosoever is watching?
I don't know. I could go on again, but I think one thing Carla mentioned before was the fact that 2020 is definitely the year where everyone's opened their eyes. And I think parents opened up their eyes to the fact that their kids weren't doing maybe as well, if possibly, or doing what they thought they were doing in schools, or the schools weren't performing the so-called roles and responsibilities that they envisaged. And I think it made parents aware of the fact that they needed to be more involved, definitely, whether they liked it or not. And I appreciate everybody's circumstances are different, but I think that every parent should try and engage with their child's education, because in order to gain a better understanding of their children, but also to help with that education by having a good understanding with their child, because it's that stability that will allow the school to be able to um, do exactly what they're doing, which is allowing the child to imbibe that information that the parents are allowing them to. But I think that parents really do need to be aware that they play a bigger role than they possibly have anticipated in the past. And that is going to bring out the best in their children. And all we want to do as parents, being one myself, is fully equip our children to be able to thrive in the world, not even survive, but thrive and do well in the world and be able to stand on their own feet.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. And it's our pleasure to have you and hear you out about all Future Learning Lab and about your journey and your connection to education and race and everything. So thank you so much, Dr. Habiba. Any last words from Carla, please? Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got this lasting thought that Dr. Habibah said that's going to stick with me going away. And I'm thinking about, this is paraphrasing what she said really, is that education is not something that you get. It's not something that you can buy. It's something that you become throughout your lifetime. It's a process. And I think that's also something that comes from the race community. It's the connecting everybody so that they can continue that process, whether it's teachers, parents, other businesses, things like that. We're all in the process of becoming, educated people. So that would be my takeaway from today's discussion.
So thank you so much. But such a nice education is not something which we get, and education is also what I feel is something which we can build our future on, and we can work today, and we can see in our future that big changes, huge changes, what we are looking for, what we are thriving for, and what we want in our children. Thank you so much, everybody, and see you next week again with Wednesday Live. Until then, have a great evening and a great time. Thank you so much. Thank you.